If you like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and join Knucklehead Nation. What's going on, Knuckleheads? Thank you guys so much for joining another episode of the FightersRep video podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Andy Ruiz says no to Dillian White, and he's headed to Teddy Atlas? Oh my goodness, is that what's happening with Andy Ruiz in the heavyweight division? Well, I'll give you my opinion. But definitely with regards to the Dillian White fight, looks like that is not happening. And if you look on Instagram at Andy Ruiz's page, it's looking like it was Dillian White's fault. Obviously, I'm sure if you ask Dillian White, it's going to be Andy Ruiz's fault. But for whatever reason, the Matchroom and PBC chemistry is just non-functional. It's just non-functional. And I wonder at what point, that a big fight is going to get made between a Matchroom fighter and between a PBC fighter. Because, again, this is looking like another Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury situation where, let's face it, there's a lot less at stake. Still a lot at stake for Andy Ruiz and Dillian White. I think a lot more at stake for Andy Ruiz at this juncture, considering what he's been through in the past 6 months. But, nonetheless, it's nowhere near the gravity of a fight as, Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua was. We know that fight didn't get made. We really still don't know the reason. If you ask me as an objective observer, I would imagine that perhaps Deontay Wilder wants to, or maybe his handlers want to hold on to his belt for a little bit longer. They didn't want to make the Joshua fight. They probably felt that that was a dangerous fight, and they probably felt that they'd have to go to the UK to make it. Who knows? I wouldn't imagine that it's Anthony Joshua that's preventing that fight from happening. At the end of the day, it could also be Eddie Hearn that's getting in the way of that fight from happening. But my goodness, Andy Ruiz and Dillian White can't even be made? It's a little bit silly. And, my understanding is that Andy Ruiz had a certain asking price, and they just didn't meet the asking price. Now, is Andy Ruiz pricing himself out? I would imagine that if Dillian White said no, then he's probably of the view that this guy's not worth the money that he's asking for, nowhere near it, and I can just go and fight Povetkin and some of the other guys out near Europe. Also another option, if it doesn't happen between Pulev and Anthony Joshua, maybe a Pulev fight. There are a lot of things that can happen at this point. And also, we've got this undercard on the Fury Wilder 2 fight where we're going to be having Prince Charles Martin taking on Gallo Negro for an IBF eliminator, is my understanding. So, that's also a fight perhaps Dillian White might look at down the line. What's really unfortunate for me is the fact that Dillian White is not able to secure a real fight against a heavyweight titleist, either, Wilder or Joshua or somebody else at this point. I doubt a fight with Joshua would make that much sense. I don't think it would at this point, considering Joshua already knocked him out. But hey, I'd still watch it. I actually think, come to think of it, I might have to retract that. A fight with Dillian White might actually be better than a fight with Pulev, Kubrat Pulev. But that said, I feel bad for Dillian White. I wish at least Deontay Wilder would get in a ring with him. They're treating Dillian White like he's not a threat, and they can't fool the boxing public. They can't fool the real hardcore fans. I think everybody deep down inside understands that even if Dillian White loses against either of these guys, he's got a real shot. And he's a real tough guy. He's going to be a handful for either Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua. And I think because styles make fights, I do think Dillian Whyte would be more of a handful for Deontay Wilder than anyone else. And then after that, I would say he's probably a huge handful for Anthony Joshua at this point too, because if I'm being honest, I felt like Anthony Joshua looked a little bit timid and a little bit more fragile in that last Andy Ruiz fight. He didn't look like this hulking, come-forward behemoth that we're used to seeing, and like the guy we saw in the on his first fight against Dillian Whyte. So just a real confusing situation for Dillian Whyte. I think it's strange that Andy Ruiz didn't take the fight. Andy Ruiz, I must say, I think with regards to, I hate to say it, with regards to Andy Ruiz, with regards to Deontay Wilder, unless there's something that I don't see, I don't think that the guidance for these fighters is proper. I just don't think it's smart. They're missing out on some of the biggest fights and the biggest paydays in the world. And really, Andy Ruiz is talking about he's got big news. Who is Andy Ruiz going to fight that's as safe and as lucrative of a fight as Dillian Whyte is, unless he's going to fight, a rematch or a trilogy fight with Anthony Joshua, which, if I'm being honest, I don't think he deserves it after that shit performance he put up last time, which was all his fault, by the way. Or, does he go in there against, he can't go in there against Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. They're scheduled for February. So, who's he going to go in there with? I don't understand. I would think the only other person that would make sense for Andy Ruiz at this point would be Luis Ortiz. And let's face it, he's just not the same guy anymore. You can't keep putting Ortiz in there with these guys, these young guys. I think Ortiz showed us that, he reached his peak in that first Deontay Wilder fight, and even at his peak, he wasn't good enough to beat Deontay Wilder. And obviously in the rematch, we saw what happened. He was boxing beautifully, but it was more Deontay Wilder laid back, allowing him to box beautifully until he touched him with one right hand, and it was, the kiss of death. So, just a very weird situation. If I was Andy Ruiz, I would do a lot of things, but I would definitely try to take that Dillian Whyte fight, considering he's the interim WBC champion. Because if he wins that fight, it puts him in position to fight the winner of Wilder Fury. Or maybe to get another crack at Anthony Joshua. Why would you say no to Dillian Whyte? The only reason, if you ask me, you would say no to Dillian Whyte is you see that, unlike Andy Ruiz, he's a dedicated means 100% business, ready to scrap at all times fighter. And he's serious about his, and he's trying to get it. And Andy Ruiz is just not that guy. He just doesn't have that dedication. He doesn't have that work ethic, I'm sure he's got some dog in him. I haven't seen him get hurt, so we haven't really had to see too much dog. But, he's got a great chin. He can definitely fight. But, is he going to go in there with a guy as passionate as Dillian Whyte, a guy who wants it as bad as Dillian Whyte after coming off a loss against Anthony Joshua? I would imagine Andy Ruiz's mindset is probably like, screw this. I'm not getting in there with no freaking Dillian Whyte. That guy's going to, try to take my soul. Do I think Andy Ruiz can win that fight? Yeah, Andy Ruiz can win that fight. If I'm being honest, I think Andy Ruiz can win any fight. But I just, unfortunately, after seeing what he's done with his career, after seeing what happened with Manny Robles, and you can watch Manny Robles' reaction right here on this channel. I just interviewed him last week, or on Wednesday, actually. After seeing what Andy Ruiz did with that relationship and what he's done with his career, I just don't think he's very bright, and again, I'm not dissing, Al Heyman. I'm nobody to diss Al Heyman or whoever's in charge of guiding the careers of Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, but they've basically, driven them to the point where they can fight these Matchroom guys and make a shit ton of money, and decided to make a U-turn right in front of that, probably because they fear that their fighter might lose, and then they've sort of lost their cash cow. But my goodness, it's the heavyweight division. Anybody can lose and anybody could come back. And that's the culture we should be espousing, as fans, as commentators, as journalists, as fighters, as coaches, as promoters, whatever, what have you, These guys should be able to go in there and fight and make a fortune, and win, lose, or draw should still have the respect and still have the earning power, if not more, especially in a comeback redemption fight where, I think Anthony Joshua showed that. He showed that you can lose and your stock can still go up because now you've got an interesting storyline. And I think that's something that boxing has kind of drifted away from over the past few decades, unfortunately, which has really harmed the sport. So just very, very silly sort of protect the zero, protect the undefeated record mentality, I think, coming from these PBC promoted fighters. I would like to see them take more risks, if I'm being honest. And, I think I'm seeing a pattern here. It happened with Gary Russell Jr. It happened with Deontay Wilder. It's happening with Andy Ruiz. And, I'd like to see them take more risks, man. I'd like to see them take more risks, fight these Matchroom guys, make us the fights we want to see, make your guys a fortune. Make your fighters a fortune. And if they lose, what's the big deal? Everybody should lose. If you've never lost, then you've never really been challenged as a fighter. Who's never lost other than like Floyd Mayweather, who, give him all the credit in the world. I do think he's the best boxer I've ever seen, but he also was very selective about who he fought in a majority of his career. And then, I don't know. I just don't think the undefeated record, even Rocky Marciano, he kind of got lucky. He didn't have any fantastic heavyweights in the time he was fighting when he went undefeated. So, I think it's very hard to go undefeated legitimately. And I don't think that undefeated record should be worshipped the way it is, because at the end of the day, it hurts boxing. It turns off boxing fans. It kills any kind of storyline or plot. It doesn't allow people to make money. It definitely hurts all the guys that are being used as fodder for the undefeated record or the undefeated fighter. And it's just a problem all around, and it's something that, as a promoter myself of the only kickboxing show in the entire state of California, is not something that I would espouse. So that said, before I read the comments, and thank you guys so much for joining me on the comments. If this is your first time here, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, share, donate to the channel, get your t-shirts in the link below. Anything you guys spend or do here benefits the channel, is reinvested right back into the channel and to the promotion. Again, we're the only kickboxing event in the entire state of California, and FightersRep 9 is going down Friday night, February 28th in Seal Beach, California. That's right between LA and Orange counties. You can get your ticket at FightersRep.com, or you can watch the fights live right here on YouTube if you can't make it. All I ask is you donate the amount of money you think that the show is worth, that these fighters and fights are worth. So that being said, we've got AJ Leahy in the chat. Thank you for joining, my brother. He says, Ruiz ducking White. And you know what? That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like, because if you sit down and you objectively look at both guys and you hear them talk, and you see what they've done, especially recently, you have to believe that Dillian White is not the kind of guy to run from Andy Ruiz Jr. If I'm being honest with you, look, I feel like Dillian White would fight anybody, anytime, any place. And anybody who doesn't respect that is a hater or just not a real boxing fan. That's the way I feel about it. Fight Life Nation. My boy Marco says Andy might want some extended time off to lose weight. That might be it, but that shouldn't even be an issue for a guy in Andy Ruiz's position. Unfortunately, it is. AJ Lee says Ruiz came in with the idea, if I come in heavy, I'll hit harder, and I'll eventually hit him, but Joshua boxed perfect. Actually, I disagree with that, AJ Lee. After interviewing Manny Robles, who's Andy Ruiz's coach, on this channel more than a couple times now, it's my understanding that Andy Ruiz just showed up out of shape, that Andy Ruiz just wasn't dedicated or disciplined and didn't go to the gym the way he should have. And he was overweight, not because he wanted to be overweight. He was overweight because he was just eating and not giving a shit, and that's why he lost. But at the end of the day, I do wish him the best. I hope that he can make a comeback, and I think he should have stayed with Manny Robles. I think the fact that he's leaving, and I'll tell you to where I believe he's leaving in a minute, but I think the fact that he's leaving is unfortunate and shows a lack of loyalty. And I do think it's going to hurt him and his fan base in the long run. Davey L, I believe that's an L or an I, maybe, says Ortiz is 50. Davey, thank you for joining. By the way, hit that subscribe and the bell notification icon if it's your first time here. But he says Ortiz is 50. Man, Ortiz might be 60. It's a real shame if he's going to fight Ortiz and try to get us to believe that that's a better fight than Dillian White. And again, the boxing public sees right through that. You can really compare this situation to politics, right? And the reason I say that is because Elizabeth Warren was polling so well recently until she basically or seemingly made this fake sexist smear against Bernie Sanders, who, everybody knows is like the antithesis of sexist. And now she's like, she's dropped to fourth in line as far as her popularity and people that will vote for her goes. So, when boxers do this kind of stuff, the fight fans are not stupid, So if Andy Ruiz thinks that a fight with Ortiz is going to gain him any fans after what he did to Manny Robles, especially, and after his most recent bout, man, he's got a lot coming to him if he thinks that that's a good idea, and I find it extremely disturbing. Whoever's guiding his career and whoever decided to have him kick Manny Robles to the curb, and also now decided to have him not fight Dillian White. It's borderline. It's stupid. There's no other word for it. I just think it's stupid. But what do I know? I'm not the ridiculously rich, Al Heyman. I can't, I can't speak on his behalf, and I can't really tell you what his mindset is, other than maybe he just thinks, his guy's losing is that big of an issue. Muay Thai 23 says Elton John versus Tom Hanks. Elton John gets it done in the second round via KO. I would agree with you there. Fight Life Nation says, I think Andy needs to come in around 250 pounds and he might need time to get that much off and be healthy. Davey L says, I think his lowest weight is 246 pounds. Swaggy Taggy 420 back in here, brother. Thank you for joining. He says, too much weight is put on. The O, it's all about how you come back. Exactly, and I feel like the real fans understand that. Even the casual fans understand that. Look at the turnout for that AJ Ruiz 2 fight. People wanted to see AJ come back. People wanted that redemption story. There's value in that. You know what I mean? Suleiman says, Andy Ruiz, the taco snatcher versus Dillian White, the body snatcher. Absolutely hilarious, Suleiman. Mihailo Mikhail says, what's up, promoter? Nice to catch one again. Mihailo, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in here again. And thank you so much for your super chat donation. He says, support. Mihailo, thank you so much again. It means a whole lot to me and to the fighters and to the staff at FightersRep. we are working on some big things as well. I will have some surprises in store for you guys. But as you know, Fighters Rep 9 is February 28th, less than a month away. We've got some fantastic fighters on this card. So, all of you international guys that can't make it to Southern California, perhaps, or all you out-of-towners, you can tune in right here on YouTube for free to watch our fights. And I guarantee you, it's the most entertaining rule set in the world. So thank you for your donations and your generosity, guys. Swaggy Taggy 420 says, could see Ruiz versus Ortiz being lined up for a PBC show. Yeah, they're already used to working with Ortiz, and they'll continue to sell Ortiz as this product that's the most dangerous heavyweight without a title. And it's just a false narrative that, nobody's believing at this point. I would have believed that during the first Deontay Wilder fight. But after Wilder knocked him out in the fashion that he did, and looking at Luis Ortiz's resume where, let's be honest, he hasn't really beaten anybody of note, right? So, how could you sell me that narrative after Deontay Wilder's not only knocked him out once, but now knocked him out twice in the absolute depths of the twilight of his career? If Luis Ortiz were any further into his twilight career, this man would have, jumped through a wormhole into another dimension where, you're born at the age of 60 and then you reverse age or something. That was horrible. But you know what I'm saying? Like, what is going on that you guys think you can sell us this BS narrative? We've watched boxing our entire lives. It's still a popular enough sport to where nobody's going to buy that product except an absolutely delirious fan or somebody who's just not watching boxing at all. It's so stupid. Luis Ortiz, I feel like it's almost a shoo-in that Andy Ruiz Jr. is going to fight Luis Ortiz. Davey L says Andy Ruiz is still in Taco Bell. Oh my goodness. AJ Leahy, Hrgovic versus Ruiz would be a good fight. I agree, that would be a fun fight. But, I still think Hrgovic is a little green. He's got some things to work on. He wasn't horribly impressive in his last fight against the drummer boy, who is definitely way past his prime and way out of contention. But, Hrgovic looked okay. He just looked like a big, plotting, heavy-handed guy. And I didn't see anything special from him in that last fight. So I'd like to see him take a couple more fights before he gets in there with a guy as talented as Andy Ruiz. But if he's willing to take it, I'll watch it. That being said, I think the fight to make is Ruiz-Dillian Whyte, I think that's the fight that Ruiz should be after. Anyway, by the way, I heard this through the grapevine, and I'm not going to tell you, where this grapevine is located or how many grapevines there are that I heard this through, but I'm almost certain that we will be seeing Andy Ruiz Jr. Being coached and trained in his next bout by, get this, and don't laugh, you guys, because I know some of you are going to listen to this and you're going to be like, that relationship is not going to work. But it looks like, to me, Andy Ruiz is going to be going into his next camp with his new trainer and coach, Teddy Atlas. Teddy, I take no bullshit from anybody. Atlas. That's what I'm hearing through the grapevine. I can't guarantee it 100%. But that's what I'm hearing. And I don't think at all that relationship is going to work, because it didn't work with Freddie Roach. It didn't work with Abel Sanchez. It didn't work with Manny Robles, who's a super cool, laid-back guy who's extremely focused when it comes to his fighters, but he's not going to stroke your ego and beg you to come to the gym. And I don't think Teddy Atlas is the guy that's going to stroke your ego and beg you to come to the gym. I could be wrong. Again, this is just my opinion, but I think that a relationship between Andy Ruiz and Teddy Atlas is a very short, tumultuous, unsuccessful relationship based on those two personalities. Especially when I heard in my last interview from Manny Robles that he had yet to hear from Andy Ruiz Jr. Not even a phone call, not even a text. Knuckleheads, could you imagine that? Just for a moment, let me put this in perspective for you. You're working with a coach. He gets you in incredible shape and you win over Alexander Dmytrenko. You then get the call for an Anthony Joshua fight. He keeps you in shape for that fight and you reach the summit and become basically unified heavyweight champion of the world. And then you stop listening to that coach. And then you lose because you stopped listening to that coach. And then you never speak to that coach again. There's a level of disrespect there that's just, it's unfathomable to a person where if loyalty means anything to you, if you're a person who values loyalty or friendship or relationships, that level of disrespect is something that's a flaw in your character. And that's not something that's going to be cured by the next friend. That's not something external. That's something internal. And that's something you're going to take with you into the next relationship and every other relationship. So that's my opinion on that, and I'm sticking to it. And, you guys can feel free to tell me what you think about that. AJ Lee says, you cannot fix slow feet, and Ruiz has them. No weight will change that. Actually, AJ, again, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think if he would have come in light, he would have been much better off in that fight. I don't think he has slow feet. I think when you come into your next fight 15 or 16 pounds overweight, when you were already overweight, then it's a huge problem and it's going to slow you down to the point where it's going to affect your ability to cut off the ring and win the fight and fight the fight that you needed to fight against Anthony Joshua. Suleiman says that Jake Paul versus Gibb fight was a complete joke. DAZN is now looking likely to do KSI versus Jake Paul. This trend needs to end. I do think it's a bit of an embarrassing trend, but, at the end of the day, they're a business, and if that's what they want to do, more power to them. But I think those fights are silly. And it ended in the first round because these guys don't know what they're doing, really. Swaggy Taggy 420 says, AJ Leahy, have to disagree. If you watch the first fight, Ruiz had the foot speed. He was constantly in and out of range. He was far too heavy in the second fight. Couldn't use the same movement. I'm going to have to agree with Swaggy Taggy on this one. GG all in. Thank you guys. Again, all you newbies, thank you for joining the chat. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, the bell notification icon. Join Knucklehead Nation. You'll be helping me not only support the channel, but build up the next generation of the best strikers on earth that are going to be competing at FightersRep 9, where we don't do grappling and we don't do hugging. We stand and bang it out, baby. Let's see here. So GG All In says, Andy Ruiz has no discipline. Teddy Atlas doesn't muck around. And Andy would be wasting Teddy's time asking him to be his trainer. Wholeheartedly agree, GG. Wholeheartedly agree, my brother. Mihailo says they probably still see Andy Ruiz as an asset and they don't want to risk his career against another UK fighter. The next fight is not only for his new coach, but for his career. I think I agree with you, and I think he contributed to it being a potentially career-defining, career-ending fight with what he did with Manny Robles and what he did in his lack of preparation for that rematch. It's all on him, man. It's all on him. AJ Lee says he didn't have the foot movement in the first fight either. Round 2, one of the commentators even says it. Well, AJ, appreciate your opinion, brother. You've driven it home now, but, we respectfully, I respectfully disagree, but, everybody has their opinion, and all opinions are welcome on this channel. The only Non-biased, not going to treat you different based on where you're from or what you look like. Combat sports commentary channel, especially related to boxing. We love everybody, and everybody is welcome here. And you won't be banned here unless you're really disrupting the chat to the point where, nothing can get done or you go really crazy. And I don't think we've banned anyone. I think we've put people in timeout. Maybe we've banned someone from the comment section one time, but that's about it, I think. But we will put you in timeout, kiddos. So behave good and be nice to each other. GG All-In says White will fight Povetkin. I think that's what's going to happen, GG. I agree with you on that one. Muay Thai 23 says Jake Paul, pound for pound, #1 in all weight divisions. Thank you for another extremely valuable contribution, Muay Thai 23. GG All-In says no one wants to fight Joseph Parker, so he's reduced to fighting bums. That's a shame, and maybe a rematch with him and Andy Ruiz would be fun too. I do think Joseph Parker beats him. Swaggy Taggy 420, Andy will get a few more big fights and get his money, and probably, I can't claim him, but hopefully the fights are exciting. We'll see, man. We'll see. We'll see what this big news he has is. That's coming on the horizon here. I think he's just going to announce that, I'm going to call it now. He's going to announce that he's with Teddy Atlas, and he's going to announce that he's fighting Luis Ortiz. That's what I think he's going to announce. GG All-In and AJ Lee says Ruiz won't stay with Atlas. I agree with you on that, AJ. GG All-In says Teddy would kick Andy up his Mexican ass if he didn't respect Teddy. Andy's a fat pig. He needs to address his food addiction before he fights again. Very cool, GG. I just asked that, we know, we don't have to refer to his ass as a Mexican ass. He's a human being. He has an ass. We can leave it at that, brother. Suleiman says Ruiz is a fake, and then a snake emoji. His dad fired Robles. At least fire himself yourself like a man. Hey, Suleiman, what are you suggesting? That somebody have some integrity in this sport? Oh my goodness, Suleiman. Oh my goodness, Suleiman. We wouldn't want any integrity to seep into the sport now, would we? GG All-In says they need to put a padlock on Andy's fridge. Oh, that's brutal, GG. That's brutal. Mihailo says Teddy Atlas once threatened Mike Tyson with a .38 caliber. Imagine that. It's safe to say Teddy won't take any shit from a fighter the caliber of Andy Ruiz. I agree with that, Mihailo. And did you hear about the time that he got into a fight with Hector Macho Camacho? Teddy Atlas, he was talking about it on his podcast recently, said, and may God rest the soul of Hector Macho Camacho, a guy I loved and respected very much, but he said Hector Macho Camacho is one of these very tough guys that like to push buttons, God rest his soul. And one time, Teddy Atlas was training his fighters. They're about to spar, and Macho Camacho just walks up in the ring, knowing that they're about to spar and get some work in, and just starts warming up. And when Teddy asked him to leave, he wouldn't leave. And, long story short, a fight happened. And Teddy Atlas basically made Macho Camacho submit. My understanding is, they threw some punches. Teddy Atlas says, I'm not going to win this. He grabbed him by the hair and started kneeing him, is what I believe he says. So definitely a story you want to check out. And Teddy Atlas is crazy enough to go in there and try to fight a world champion at the time. And Macho Camacho, you better believe he's not scared of anybody. Let's see here. Swaggy Taggy 420 says Ben Davison could be a good link-up, but not as a full-time trainer, but would be a good addition to Ruiz's team. But again, is that a guy that's going to deal with the BS? Muay Thai 23 says Ruiz in Mexico farming avocados. Oh, my goodness. Suleiman says Joseph Parker ducked Chisora with that fake-ass spider bite story. There is some wildlife in Australia that I wouldn't want to mess with. So, unless I know for a fact the guy is faking it, or for a fact, I'm not really sure. I want to agree and say he's ducking. But you might be right. Chisora's a tough guy. I think Chisora's going to be fighting Usyk next. That's a fun fight. And I'm very happy with that fight. So whatever, Parker, if he's ducking, he just lost out. But I don't know if he's ducking or not. Swaggy Taggy 420 says Andy doesn't need to be an Adonis. Fat boys can fight too, but not as heavy. But not as heavy in the Ruiz fight. I think you mean as in the Anthony Joshua fight. And I agree. He needs to definitely trim some of that weight off. And I just, I don't think it's something he even really needs to concentrate on. You just need to eat a decent diet, and as long as you're in the gym every day or almost every day like you should be as a heavyweight champion of the world, then there's no way that weight stays on. Really, unless you have like some kind of metabolic disorder or something, I don't see how that weight can stay on. I go to the boxing gym, if I go 2 days a week and I eat okay, I'm like starving to death, and I can I can start seeing some abs and stuff by come Saturday or Sunday. So I don't know. I don't know how these people do it. How can you be in the gym that much and not be trim? I don't get it. What are you just eating all day long? It's crazy. GG All In says Parker's fought Joshua, Ruiz, and White, and he's ducking Chisora. Come on. Yeah, I agree with GG on that one. Parker seems like the guy to fight just about anybody. That said, though, Parker had a hell of a time with Ruiz. They said Parker won that fight, but I thought Ruiz won that fight, even though Parker got the decision. He was at home. In the Joshua fight, he kind of ran from Joshua. Didn't put up much of a fight and lost that one. And he also lost the White fight. So, maybe he's looking for an easier fight. Maybe he doesn't want to lose. We'll see where Parker's headed. Mihailo says, Teddy also once said, I'll take a reliable fight over a fast guy or a powerful guy any day of the week. Andy Ruiz sacking the trainer he made history with doesn't really sound like reliable. If I'm Teddy Atlas and you reach out to me, I'm going to tell you like this. You're going to do everything I say. If you miss one day, we're done here. But I still get to keep the money that you were going to pay me as trainer. Deal or no deal. That's how I would handle a guy like that, because you can't reason with guys like that. If you can't break that habit, you can't break that laziness and lack of dedication, then it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And I would want a lot of my pay up front if I'm Teddy Atlas, so I don't waste my time with this guy. Let's see. Swaggy Taggy 420 says, far too late over here. Yes, the second AJ fight. What time is it there, by the way, Swaggy? I always forget where some of you guys are from. I apologize for that. Suleiman says Parker got no dog in him in the ring. I agree with Suleiman on that one. Chisora was going to bring it to him. I agree with that too. So I'm going to have 2 asks, or actually 3 asks of you guys right now. If you're in the chat, you like what you're hearing, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and the bell notification icon. Also, just to remind me, man, put the country or the state where you're from in the chat. I want to see, what kind of demographic am I dealing with here? I feel like there's some guys from the UK, Canada, some people from Latin America once in a while. But I'd love to know, where are you guys from? Let me know. Put it in the chat. I just want to know. I'm curious, and I find these things interesting. Also, feel free to donate to the Super Chat. Even $1, goes a long way if everybody's doing it. And, at the end of the day, it just goes into FightersRep. I'm helping a lot of these young fighters out. You guys are going to see a fantastic commercial soon as well, and a fantastic documentary done by Vahan Bedellian, who's my camera guy. He's doing a documentary right now in the main event, Milton Arguello versus John Garcia. It's going to be a fantastic fight at FightersRep 9, and it's going to be like an embedded style. And, he's the one that he's done a lot of projects for the UFC. He's extremely talented. He's done documentaries for us before. So you definitely, are going to want to check him out. And check out that documentary when it comes out. Tomorrow we're shooting a commercial with Anthony Workin who I believe is going to be co-main eventing the Fighters Rep 9 card. He's a beast out of Fight Solutions HQ, which is basically the American lineage of the Shoot Box Academy, where Shogun Rua and Vanderlei Silva came out of. He's coached under Coach Gerson Chilipaki, and he's an absolute beast. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. The commercial should be released, I would say, within the week after tomorrow when we shoot it. Let me see here. Suleiman, Muay Thai 23 says Ireland. GB Boxy says Earth. I like it, brother. Swaggy Taggy says 340 staying up for Showbox, but probably won't last much longer. I love it, Swaggy Taggy. Oh, and he's a Scotsman. Damn, that's so dope, you guys. That's so dope, man. Let me tell you guys, man, I got a lot of respect for all the guys in Europe that are in this chat. You know, I would love, I've only been to the UK one time, and it was on a connecting flight to Lebanon when I went to visit my family in Lebanon. I remember on the way there and on the way back, I had a connecting flight at Heathrow Airport, and it was pretty cool, man. I checked it out. I was like, man, these people are so nice. You know, the weather I wasn't into, but the people were super nice. And just, you know, I love the culture. I love how much, you know, everybody out there is so into boxing, into combat sports. You know, it's just, I really appreciate the culture out there, you know, and I like it. I like it very much. Suleiman says he's from Toronto. Holy shoot, Suleiman. I'm actually headed to Toronto in the next couple weeks here. So, you know, I don't know if I can really do much. I'm headed out there with the wifey. But, you know, I'm going to go check it out. If you have any recommendations for me or you want to reach out on Instagram or whatever, you know, I'd be happy to say what's up to you. You know, maybe have a beer or something. I don't know. Have a lemonade or whatever it is if you don't drink. You know, I'll be there. But Toronto, that's very cool. I think Jamaican, who's absent today, is also in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, Suleiman. I wonder if you guys are too far from each other. GG All In says, I'm from New Zealand. Holy shit, dude. That is freaking sick, man. And you know what? Man, New Zealand has some badass fighters, man. New Zealand and Australia now with these dudes coming out of City Kickboxing or whatever, man. They're just taking over. Adesanya, Volkanovski. I feel like Dan Hooker's a beast that could eventually become a champion perhaps at some point as well. Just a very talented bunch of guys out there. I like it. Mihailo Mikhail says the Netherlands with the Dutch School of Kickboxing philosophy. Oh, and known for tulips and waffles. I love it, my man. So, I mean, are you living in the Netherlands right now? That's really interesting, you know, and obviously I love the Netherlands because, you know, that Dutch style of kickboxing, man, I love it, man. So entertaining. Glory is so entertaining, and, you know, obviously part of the reason that I was inspired to create Fighters Rep in this channel because I like kickboxing so much. Muay Thai 23 says the Lebanon ? They're hardcore over there, bro. Yep. You know, my family originally is from Lebanon. Unfortunately, they were forced to leave their ancestral homeland. So, you know, be happy, be lucky if you're still there. That said, I can't complain. I was born and raised here in the United States. I think it's a fantastic place, you know. Very nice, you know, as long as, you know, you do your thing, you work hard, you'll be just fine, you know. But again, that's a bit of an immigrant mentality I got going on there from my parents. You know, my dad always told me, he says, sons, this is America. You know, if you shine shoes and you're good at it, you make $1 million. And I said, okay, well, you know, dad knows what he's talking about. I'm just going to listen to dad. And then obviously mother's side, I'm saying obviously like you guys should know this, but she's actually Syrian. So, you know, Syrian Lebanese, just Arab basically. And, you know, that's where the fam is from, you know, and rough situation in Syria right now. But, you know, Unfortunately, a lot of countries, having a rough time right now. Hopefully, all we can do is pray for the best for everybody and wish them the best. But yeah, I mean, I definitely want to go check out Europe. I'm excited to go check out Canada. I've actually been there before. They've also got a pretty poppin' fight culture in Canada too, man. They got some good boxers that have come out of there. I love Better Biev. I love me some Better Biev, boy. And he's a very cool thing, man. He's a very cool fighter. He's a beast, man. I just want to watch Better Biev, man. That's one of those guys that doesn't need to talk. That guy's the fucking Terminator, man. And obviously George St. Pierre comes to mind. Johnny Makdessi, obviously not as popular as George St. Pierre, but Lebanese, Canadian, as far as I know. Also Faraz Zahabi, I think he's an Arab too, from Canada. Pretty cool stuff, Always proud to see that. But awesome. I would love to travel the world. I hope at some point this Fighters Rep thing will get big enough to where, I can come to a town near you guys and put on a show. But first things first, man, we got to grow this sport here in California by being on this channel, by subscribing, donating, buying a shirt in the link below, whatever. You help me build it, really, guys. I mean, if you look at the CSAC event list right now, which is the California State Athletic Commission event list, I'm the only kickboxing promotion. It's insane. I'm in Southern California, you guys. We have more talent in California as far as fighters and fight camps goes than I think anywhere on earth. And I literally had over 130 people sign up to fight for this next show from some of the best camps on earth. I mean, I'm talking about Black House MMA, Kings MMA. If you don't know Kings, I mean, that's Rafael Cordero, Kelvin Gaslam, Benil Dariush, Systems Training Center. Anderson Silva's son is training out of there. He's going to be fighting for us. Obviously, Black House is where Silva came from. I even got a kid that I was trying to get on the card from Lyoto Machida's camp down here. And he's like an instructor at Lyoto Machida's camp. Again, I've already mentioned Fight Solutions HQ with that shoot box lineage. We've got CMMA, Chad George's gym, and all these people are going to be competing here. And more. I mean, we've got this new team too, Champions. They're a BJJ, a striking MMA school. I'm really impressed with the kids that they got coming out. Also, we have Dynamics MMA, and that's run, I believe, by Anthony Hardonk, Vladimir Matyushenko, guys like that. And they're sending me a girl, Audrey Winters, who I'm extremely excited about, among other things. That we actually have 2 girl fights on this card, which I'm really excited about, or 2 female kickboxing fights, I should say. And I always love to watch those, man. Because I feel like women not only are greatly underrepresented in combat sports, but women MMA is so exciting. And I think with our rule set, where you just have them in the ring scrapping it out and there's no grappling and no holding, man, I mean, could you imagine Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes scrapping it out with no holding? I mean, that's insane to even think about. So, if you guys donate at all to this channel, know that that's what it's going towards. That's what it's going towards. So let me see here. So Mihailo says, yep, it's actually 4:44 over here. Oh my goodness. Suleiman. By the way, Mihailo, thanks for being on here at 4:44 in the morning. I wonder if you're like on your way to work or you can't sleep or something. So Suleiman says Jamaican is in Vancouver, I believe. And I think I've been to Montreal and Toronto, but not Vancouver. I can't remember. Muay Thai 23 says, that's a dope thing to say, bro. I'm not sure what I said there. You're going to have to remind me, Muay Thai. I talk too much and I forget what I said. Lost One says, hey, man, just got here. Sorry, but why did Ruiz say no to White? That's such a good comeback for him. I think he wants more money than he deserves, if I'm being honest. I think he wants more money than he deserves. And, they just can't reach an agreement. Maybe Dillian White doesn't think he deserves the money he's asking for. Maybe Andy Ruiz doesn't want to take that fight as a comeback fight, because let's face it, Dillian White is a dangerous opponent. Dillian White is the kind of guy who, he's gonna go in there and he's gonna try just to beat your ass, And I really like Dillian Whyte, man. I really believe him. He gives off such a genuine vibe when he says he's down to fight anybody. And I don't think Andy Ruiz has the hunger that Dillian Whyte has. There's no way. There's no way Andy Ruiz, who had everything and decided to throw it all away just to eat and be lazy, has the same amount of hunger that a guy like Dillian Whyte has, who's been the WBC mandatory for over 800 days, had the title stripped from him for being falsely flagged for a banned substance, and is still fighting with tenacity and heart and wanting to fight everybody, and has probably one of the best resumes in heavyweight boxing outside of Anthony Joshua. I do think Dillian Whyte has the best resume in heavyweight boxing outside of Anthony Joshua, maybe Derek Chisora. Even Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder don't have the resume that Dillian Whyte has, if you ask me. That's my opinion. So, I don't know why this fight wasn't made. If you ask me, it's probably more Andy Ruiz's fault. I don't like the way PBC handles their fighters. Again, they love this, undefeated record, avoid a loss at all costs sort of mentality. It's a very American thing, unfortunately. And I think that's a culture that we need to get rid of because it destroys the sport in every sense. Lost One says, "You're awesome, man. Never stop. I'm going to buy a t-shirt for sure." Thank you so much, Lost One. I really appreciate that, man. And he says, "White used to kickbox. You should call him up." I actually reached out to his email address that he has on his Instagram to see if I can get him on the show. I did get a response, but I haven't been able to get him on the show yet. I'll send the email again. I believe the person answering the emails is his brother Dean. So, and he says he would forward my email to Dillian, and, they would decide whether they want to be on the show or not. But hasn't happened yet, but doesn't mean it won't happen, So I'll try to get him on here. And that's true that he's a kickboxer. I think that's very cool. But I do think that he brought that kickboxer mentality, into boxing with him. Because a lot of these guys that fight for me, a lot of the kickboxers, they don't have that bullshit boxing or MMA bug where they're trying to get easy fights. They're just down to fight whoever. And that's why I love this sport. And that's why that's the kind of culture I want to build with FightersRep. If you're not down to fight whoever, I think it's bullshit. At the same time, I'm not going to match you up with somebody who's way better than you or somebody you don't have a shot against, because that's just not fair. I believe matching guys up in a fight where they're confident that they can win, that they have a shot to win, and where they think it's going to be a tough fight is going to bring out the best in them and get them the best experience possible. So that's what I aim for, and I think you guys will really enjoy this next FightersRep card on the 28th. Last One says, "I honestly think there's more chance of Ruiz appearing on my 600-pound life than getting in the ring again with anyone. He's just going to chill with his cash." You might be right about that. Swaggy Taggy 420 says, "I was all aboard the White train until the second drugs fail last year, and he's subsequently looking like dog shit on 5 months later on the AJ Ruiz 2 card." Swaggy Taggy, but get this. The first banned substance was actually a something sold in the UK to everybody. It was just like a protein powder or something like that was tainted. It was contaminated. And so he found out and he got popped. And then they actually pulled that product off the shelves in the UK, is my understanding. So it's not like, he's the only one that would have tested positive. Anybody taking this supplement that was tainted or that had whatever illegal substance in it would have also tested positive. Also, if you look at the statement from the British Board of Boxing, anti-doping or whatever it is, they actually said that he was tested before the bad test, and this is in the second incident, that he was tested before, the day before, that he was then tested again, and it was that second test where there was a positive test, but then for the next 30 days they tested him, and he was clean. So I mean, they were saying if and I don't think it's it's a bad explanation. I actually think it makes a lot of sense. They were saying, so if he tested clean on day 1, and then day 2 he tested dirty, and then day 3 through 27 he tested clean again, then that's an indicator that the contamination didn't come from Dillian White. It came from the lab, or it came from a false positive, or the false positive was a problem with the test and not Dillian Whyte, or the lab, not Dillian Whyte. So I just thought it was a very fair explanation. Now, as far as him coming and looking like shit against Wach, you got to give the guy some slack, right? I mean, his boxing career, which is what he's passionate about, was basically on the line for what seems to me in that second test to have been a false positive. So, I mean, you really got to read into these things. You can't just read the headline. You can't just read the headline. You got to read into these things. And after, I read through it, I actually did a video on it. I was convinced that Dillian White could not have actually been on any sort of substance unless it was a substance that, was able to be ingested, digested, and flushed out of the body in a 24-hour period that would have had no effect, according to the British Board of Boxing, or whatever it is, UCAD, according to UCAD, and that would have had no effect on his fight against Oscar Rivas. So, I mean, what sense does it make? It just doesn't make sense. It's just not reality. So at least for me, it just doesn't make sense. For somebody to test clean on day 1, to test negative on day 2, and then to test clean from days 3 through 30, it would indicate to me, based on that evidence and the amount that they found in his body, that was a contamination incident. That was a false positive. That wasn't a guy cheating. And him coming in, and could you imagine, you're Dillian White, you've been mandatory WBC champion, or mandatory for the WBC championship for over 800 days. Deontay Wilder won't give you a fight. You think you're finally going to line something up, and then you get this bullshit false positive, and everybody starts calling you a cheater? I mean, if this is your passion, it's going to kill you. You're going to fall apart. And so I totally understand why he came in the way he did and why he looked the way he did. So, maybe you don't agree with my, my viewpoint on that, but it's something that's understandable to me. It's not like the Ruiz situation where you have, you become unified champion and then tell your coach to go fuck himself whenever he calls you to train. I think that's the fighter's fault. Losing heart and getting screwed over by the sport, I don't blame Dillian White for that, especially considering what he's been through already. So let's see here. Mahilo says, do you believe that the rise of MMA has impacted the popularity of kickboxing in the USA because it cannot find its mainstream niche in Europe? It's big. Yeah, kickboxing has been dead in the United States for a very long time, and it's something that I'm trying to bring back here in California, which is our biggest state. So, again, I do encourage you guys to help me in any way you can. And I'm telling you, you're going to see something special on February 28th. You're going to see something special. You're going to see the best, I think, rule set in combat sports. And just tune in. You'll see what I'm talking about. Swaggy Taggy 420 says, and if we're criticizing Ruiz for coming in at career heavy, it should be noted White came in at career heavy and scraped the win against subpar opposition. I'd like to see him get back on track. I agree with you. He needs to get back on track. But, I gave you my reasons as to why I think what happened to him affected him and why he came in heavy. That's just the way I feel about it. Lost One says, I think it really speaks of his character, the way he dealt with Rivas under that stress. I heard the trial was like a day before. That is insane. That's something I wanted to bring up as well. I thought that was nuts that they put him through that, the day before the fight, man. Swaggy Taggy 420 says, from what I heard, these supplements were coming from a private sponsorship. I'm not someone in the know, but I respect the boxing outlet that have mentioned it. Again, private sponsorship. I mean, I have a supplement company right now that's sponsoring me. Not really a supplement company, but it's a drink. It's a hemp beverage. It's called, and I ask that you guys follow them on Instagram. Follow us at FightersRep, but follow them as well. It's called Joybird, and I believe the Instagram handle is Drink Joyberg. It's a hemp beverage, and it's supposed to calm you down. The owner of Joybird, he's now starting a company called Foxhound, and they're going to be doing supplements, natural supplements, and this and that. And they're willing to sponsor me. I mean, it's not a big deal. You just, you phone someone up. They're starting a business. They want to sponsor you. That's all it takes. It's not like rocket science. But, even his product, he's going to have to run it through people to make sure it's not contaminated and doesn't have any substances in it or whatever. I mean, because, I guess, it gets done in a lab, and then, you try it out, you see if it works. Then you send it somewhere else to see if there's any craziness in it. But some people don't follow through in all these steps, So I don't know. I mean, again, maybe he cheated. Maybe it was just a mistake on the part of the guy who made the supplement. Who knows? Who knows? What I do know is the guy's down to fight anybody. Davey L says it's not big. Baby Miller. Dillian was shafted without Vaseline, as did Chisora. Anyway, knuckleheads, we've been on here over an hour. I want to thank all you guys for joining the chat. If you're watching on the replay, please like, comment, subscribe. Share this with people. Show some love. Get your Fighters Rep shirt in the link below. Donate to the channel. Help me grow Fighters Rep. Help me grow the channel. You're much appreciated. Again, I've been on here over an hour. Blessed to have you guys on here. Blessed to have Knuckle Nation growing stronger every day. Please watch my interviews that just came out this week on the channel with Prince Charles Martin, with Manny Robles reacting to his split with Andy Ruiz. Tell me what you guys think in those videos. And thank you guys very much for joining me. Before I let you guys go here, Swaggy Taggy says, I'm not so sure it's likely, but you also need to consider the UCAD realistically do not have the funds to fight drawn out legal battles with big fighters and the promoters, managers, and sponsors, fronting legal fees in some cases. This over-the-counter excuse has been sued or used a few times in the UK now. BJ Saunders is an example. At the same time, UCAD have given a 4-year ban to a club-level fighter in the UK for 1/10 trace amount of cocaine. UCAD don't have the money to fight big names, so throw their weight around with the little guys. And in my opinion, as UK Fight and UCAD are not fit for the purpose. That's really interesting perspective, and I really appreciate that, Swaggy Taggy. And he says, great chat as always. Thank you so much for that, brother. Mahalo says, thanks for another show. Keep the great work going. Thank you, my brother. Lost One says, have a good night. You guys have a good night. We'll catch you later. Remember, we do this Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific and immediately after all the big fights. So we'll be on tomorrow. I think there's some fights. We'll be on tomorrow again. Like Lost One says, hit the like button on your way out. Much love to you guys. Keep it clean.